Welcome to another episode of BakuTalk Analysis. Now, there is a lot of things to criticize Gen 3 for, but the one thing that they do get right is the quality of storytelling in the show. Since we finished the first season of Gen 3, I thought that it would be best to point out some great things about the show because, let's be real here, Bakugan Gen 3 turned out to be a pretty damn good show. I know, someone finally had to say it. Looking past certain problems and questionable direction choices, this show in terms of quality really delivered. You had improvements to the Bakugan combat animations compared to the previous gens, and designs were pretty good, voice performances were good, and character development was present as well, with Mia, Nilius, Drago, and V being the ultimate highlights. Since the show was released all at once, one half at a time on Netflix, it was easy to binge watch the series, and since Spin Masters themselves dubbed me a super fan as well as a recognized Baku Master, I'm not exaggerating there, I went back and rewatched the series over again, and it has now become this video. So I thought it would be fun to give you all my top 10 best episodes from Gen 3. I'll try my best to diversify this list as best I can, otherwise this might become a Mia and Ventry list since the first season kinda became the Mia and Ventry show. I mean, they gave Ventry the first limited edition set, Infinity Rare, and the first Diamond single. There's clearly an agenda there. And just a fair warning, this list contains a ton of spoilers, so if you haven't watched the first season of Gen 3 yet, be sure to go back and watch it. The whole season is out on Netflix right now, so take a day off, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the series. But for now, this is the top 10 best episodes from Season 1 of Bakugan Gen 3. Number 10. Knocking on the Door of Your Mind. Honestly, I was close to putting this as like maybe my 12th or 13th favorite episode because of how goofy some of it was. Juno and Griffin shocking TC's brain to try and trigger memory flashes because TC has been contemplating his past for some time, and instead it turns into TC doing silly things. But watching it again, I realized why I actually didn't mind this episode, so much as I see it as kind of important to TC's overall story and development. Since TC had amnesia, it would have been easier for the writers to sidelight him as a side character or something and build upon his past and overall character later on, or be afforded all sorts of freedoms to mold him into whatever character is convenient for the story later. But instead, they actually went full in with TC's character, actually building upon his memory development to give us a solid story later in the season. This is also the episode where I really warmed up to Desmond Siven's performance as Thundercrunch. Not that he wasn't doing a good job before, but because it just wasn't the voice I was expecting to hear when he first appeared. Desmond really nailed the emotional range that was needed for what Thundercrunch was going through with his sudden memory flashbacks. Not only did this episode finally reveal what Thundercrunch's real name was, but also it gave us so many more questions that made us want to keep invested in the season to find out. Mixing Thundercrunch's realization with the really great soundtrack in the background and the realistic reaction that he had, it made this episode come off really strong. Yeah, they could have maybe done away with the silly pizza metaphor at the end, but hey, it's a kids show and they need to send the kids home happy. What can you do?
But I like pineapple.
Number 9. Throw some shade.
I'm really looking forward to brawling with you both and burying you like a fossil.
Okay, terrible pro wrestling promos aside, this was a really brilliant episode in my opinion. It follows Griffin as the focus of the story where it touches on his self-confidence and anxiety issues. It was a pretty big step for his character that I feel like they could have really built upon a lot more in the series. Essentially, Griffin is being challenged by the Dino Clan to an exhibition match, but because Griffin is inexperienced at brawling, since he's the last one to receive his Bakugan, he has very bad self-confidence issues, even thinking Dan and the other misfits are only supporting him for convenience. To me, this really shows Griffin another side to his character. Behind the fun-loving dancing mixer dude, he really doesn't have much confidence in himself, and having to watch that confidence through a visual metaphor in Captain Shadow, which, ironically, Bukasa also voices. I also kind of feel like this episode borrowed a joke I made back in Armin Alliance, but that's more likely a coincidence. Battle-wise, the animations were good. Tavia Pereira and Bukasa were the vocal highlights for me, and even though Griffin didn't really win in the end, it still gave us a satisfactory ending with the Misfits reassuring Griffin that it's not about winning or losing. It's about the bond that they share and about supporting each other. I think this episode was well directed, and the whole message of this episode about believing in yourself, trying your best, and supporting everyone around you is, to me, a really nice time.
Throw some shade!
Number 8. That hit the spot. This episode is a follow-up to the previous episode, We're All in Trouble, where they really build on Dan maturing as a team leader. After not making the cut to be in V's tournament, he's at first sulking, but TC actually helps him realize he can be more than a Bakugan brawler, effectively developing Dan's character. This episode really builds up on that story because when Juno gets injured, Dan suggests TC be in the tournament instead of him, putting the best interest of the Misfits over his own selfishness. And he even goes above and beyond helping TC in this fight by slipping a burger in, and it's because Dan knows TC's small details, really defining his role as a leader.
When TC gets nervous before a big brawl, he forgets to eat.
A good leader knows his team.
The Bakugan action scene in this episode was really good too, with Razor doing taekwondo kicks, which I imagine was really expensive to animate, and overall was a really enjoyable episode to watch. I really like that they developed Dan's leadership skills following up on the previous episode. Actually, let's add We're All in Trouble to the list as number 8.5. In this series of episodes, Dan went from being a whiny piss ant to being a team leader, and honestly, I'm glad that the first episodes when he's really annoying, that it was all intentional. I think that it's really worth spotlighting as it makes Dan come off as a real person who learns and grows along with the audience. A nice arc that our main hero gets to go down and eventually becoming our main lovable lead. Number 7. Drink That Burn. This episode was really comedy focused, but it also moved the tournament arc a little bit no matter how confusing it was. Nonetheless, I still got quite the kick out of it. Trox gets the opportunity to become the spokesperson to his favorite energy drink, and he ends up competing against Penji for the spot. This episode was a Trox focused episode, and while it didn't really do much character wise, it really highlighted Trox's voice actor's range and performances. I think this episode Doug Hatters really showed the wide range of emotions he can really display in Trox, and even making Trox a lot more enjoyable as we continue the series. Was this episode really important? Nah, not really. But the purpose really was to give a lighthearted and funny event to break off from all the competitive edge that was already displaying. And also a chance to knock Penji around on the head. To me, this episode was pretty fun, and I also got a pretty good laugh out of it. And at the end of the day, isn't that what the show is meant to do?
As long as I have my liquid lava, I am unstoppable.
Number 6. Don't fight for me. Not really much explanation is needed for this episode, except that I found it pretty interesting. We followed the Misfits trying to accomplish their mission of unity amongst the clans for the whole season, and to see all of them finally come together to fight off the virus horde was pretty awesome. It took some convincing from Dan and Drago to really get everyone together, but when they do, we get treated to an epic scene of them all coming in unison and rallying behind Dragonoid and the Misfits. Not to mention, it was the episode where they killed off Chip. And yeah, I got nothing else. This was pretty awesome. Go watch it for yourself and see. Number 5. Terrible bitter history. Besides the really bad setup to how we got to this point, this episode I think was one of the most important. While staking out Mia's house, Drago gives the backstory of what happened between him and Nilius that led to the Bakugan being sent to Earth. We get a really great Optimus Prime performance by Kyle Derrick, and we get an even deeper connection with our hero and our villain. Following with the narration, we understand where both Nilius and Drago are coming from, both wanting the dragons to be at peace but have different motives for it. Nilius wanting to keep the Dragon Clan's Death Star to prevent other clans from attacking them, while Drago wants to destroy it to encourage peace. The episode really does have a lot of political undertones reflecting on the state of real-life politics, but it also really helped make the Bakugan interesting and expanded the lore around Vestroia. They still have that one minor brawl, but surprisingly this episode was really great because there was no big battle. It really was just the establishment of Drago's past and why it's important to the present. I think that with what they did with this episode, showing and explaining the dilemma that the Bakugan face in their home galaxy was a really good decision, and it made all the things to come after really meaningful and awesome. Number 4. Shut up, Penji! I'm talking! This episode was definitely the most realistic of the episodes this gen has done. Mia is dealing with an internet troll leaving very negative comments on her Brawl videos that somehow someone has been recording and putting on the dark web. That's not creepy at all. And it leads to Mia facing Penji, who was the troll. The episode deals with the problem with online negativity, and the lesson the episode tries to tell, especially to their young audience, is to never let mean things someone say about you get to you. Being told by some stranger on the internet that you suck, or you should quit, or that your armpits smell bad, stuff like that is not uncommon to find. How you deal with it is the biggest part of your character. Even though Mia does win the brawl, she ended up losing the war, because it didn't change her troll's mind, and Benji is just going to keep writing mean comments regardless.
So, you going to erase all that mean stuff you said about me online?
No, why would I ever do that?
Because I proved you wrong.
Whatevs. Come on, wingman, let's wing out!
I said shut up, Penji! Mia was the good choice to pick with this story, as it deals with their struggle to keep her secret because her cousins found out and they don't even think much of her, causing her to really slip into the temptation of responding. It would have been so much easier for Mia to win and Penji changing his mind and deleting all of those comments, but no, the episode stays true to realism and teaches the important lessons. To never respond to negativity and never inviting that negativity to find you, because in the end you will always lose. I think this episode did a great job at conveying that message, and these days, it's very much welcomed.
Remember, it's best to ignore comments online.
Number 3. Exploding Sphere. This was the finale to the season, with the Misfits and Drago on the verge of defeat because Milius is a giant supreme power nut. But when all hope was lost, all the Bakugan and Brawlers from all different clans unite together to defeat Milius. To me, this was the payoff to the build-up of the Misfits mission the whole season. Having been disrespected and laughed at for their diversity, now that the other clans have woken up to the power of unity and finally stands with Drago to defeat Milius. It was really a moral victory for our heroes that gave us the victory against the big bad villain. Like I said in my review, this was perfect without getting Drago to turn into a big overlord form that would have been the capstone toy of the season, because the story was all there. Drago didn't need a giant monster mode to defeat Milius, and instead he won through his story. It was a really great piece of storytelling that was able to give a satisfying ending. Everyone really played their parts really well, having the scene where all the Misfits gave their energy to one last attack and the whole final battle was just really well done. The final attack being Exploding Sphere, which is the literal translation of Bakugan, could have been named differently, but overall I was still impressed since the story was really well told. And even though they did tease a Season 2 at the end, there is still no guarantee that Season 2 is coming, unfortunately. But regardless, this episode was a really fun ride and was a great finale. Number 2. Broke This World. This was the episode that gave us the reveal that V is actually Vakar, TC's older brother, and gave us the entire backstory of him and TC. I've already said so much about why I thought this was great in my review, but I guess I'll bring up the bullet points. When the Bakugan were coming to Earth, one Bakugan accidentally killed Vakar and TC's parents, and despite that tragedy, the Bakugan were welcomed to human society as if nothing happened. This effectively radicalized Vakar into pure hatred for the Bakugan and even a hatred for the company that his parents used to work for abandoning them. TC's amnesia was a result of one of Vakar's failed experiments to exact his revenge. We get the whole lore and backstory of Vakar and really understand his motivations and desires, wanting to change the world like his mom told him to, but doing it in the most wrong ways possible. While we don't condone his methods, we really feel sorry for this character because he lost his whole family and was left behind by the world, so he has the feeling of wanting to control everything and getting revenge on those who wronged him. Not only is this a powerful scene of understanding our main villain, but Illusion Tech abandoning him and TC draws real-world parallels to actual corporations treating their workers as insignificant. Ali Bacha, who voices Vakar, really gives a very soft but sinister performance, being able to switch between remorseful and crazy at an instant.
Nothing was ever the same again. After that, the world changed, but not for the better. Our parents spent their lives at that company and they turned their backs on us. If they won't help, then I'll help myself. I won't let you come between me and my brother.
The overall presentation for V is a really great one, and I think if you watch this episode, you'll not only feel a deep pit in your stomach for this guy, but also enjoy the context. And the number 1 episode on this list is The Secrets, The Lies. Along with the sister episode Sayonara Misfit Clan, this was the second episode to ever break my rating system. The first was Evolutions Unleashed from Gen 2. I gave this episode a 6 out of 5 because I think that the episode was not only really good, but also extremely significant. It's the conclusion to Mia's entire story arc, an arc that they have been building all season and putting so much focus on. Granted, the Misfit story of promoting diversity was something building all season as well, but Mia's was different because it was really personal for her. The episode really sets up for the dramatic payoff of her dad finding out about her wild side, having constant propaganda about Bakugan popping up on the news, and the snap from her thinking her parents hate Bakugan while also trying to keep her secret. Also, the final match of V's tournament where the reputation of the Misfits is all in her hands. There is a lot of pressure on her in this one episode. And even during the fight, it all comes crashing down. Now she has to deal with her opponent cheating, and it becomes the final straw that breaks her back. We thought she was going to lose, but her dad comes in and rescues her by helping disable the hacks that Backslash did. In the end, Mia's dad's love for his daughter was what saved her and helped her win the tournament. The episode was absolutely brilliantly directed and animated really well, and the final scene with Mia's dad finally accepting who she really is still leaves tears in my eyes every time.
I wanted to tell you everything for so long. I dreamed about it, but I was so worried.
Mia, I will always love you.
Dad!
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
It really was an amazing conclusion for, in my opinion, the best character they produced for Gen 3. Kaya Kanashiro's performance in this episode was nothing short of phenomenal, which is even more impressive considering that this was her first big voice role. They didn't pull any punches, they absolutely drove it home with this episode, and even though you thought that it was all sunshine and rainbows, Sayonara Misfit Clan once again kicks you when you're down and leaves us on a huge cliffhanger. Actually, we should put that as number 1.5. This episode had all the suspense, all the drama, all the tension, even Dan's character arc as a leader gets to shine. This episode really felt like nobody was left out and they were all gathered to witness Mia's supremacy. So that was my top 10 episodes of Bakugan Gen 3 Season 1. It had a pretty rough start at the start of the series, but however it does get picked up later on and eventually you do find some pretty quality content within them. Obviously, nobody is going to see Gen 3 as a masterpiece, but in terms of what content they gave us, they really delivered. These episodes on this list were only just my own personal favorites, and episodes I feel could hold deep meaning for people that watch. Like I said in my previous reviews, it really seems like the writers want to sell us a good story rather than sell us toys. But hey, I'm just a guy on the internet. Check out Bakugan Gen 3's first season for yourself on Netflix and see if you agree or disagree with this list. And leave a comment down below what your own top 10 episodes are. Support BakuTalk by pressing the thumbs up and give us a subscribe for more awesome Bakugan content. I've been Haru Ren, thank God for Rapid Fire, and Ventry is based. Bye!